What's up, peoples? It's Gendo here, and look at this fancy brand new blue border. That can only mean one thing. We're not taking on the Football Manager today. Oh, no. We're diving into some Eastside Hockey Manager and trying to take the hometown Chicago Blackhawks to a Stanley Cup championship. But of course, that's not going to be the main focus of this series. In fact, one of the focuses is trying to deliver this game to the masses, trying to get more eyes onto this game, because outside of a save that Jack, aka Work the Space, did 2 years ago, there really haven't been any sort of series on YouTube involving Eastside Hockey Manager. So I want to try and deliver that to the masses, get more eyes on it, as I said, and maybe you guys can go out and buy this game. If you guys like hockey and didn't know that there was a simulation game, a management simulation game out there, here's an option. If you guys don't know anything about hockey and want to try your hand at it, here you go. So that being said, let's dive into the world of Eastside Hockey Manager. So this is what the first screen of Eastside Hockey Manager looks like. It looks fairly simple. You have your new career games loading and deleting, importing databases, as well as the option to play a network game. This is developed by Sports Interactive, so network games, I'm sure, are very paramount when it comes to this type of game. Now, this is a lot smaller than Football Manager just because there aren't a lot of teams, there aren't a lot of face packs and whatnot that they need to load up. Oh, by the way, if you want to load up face packs and databases, Jack did put together a good set of videos regarding that, and I will link those in the description below so that you guys, if you do take this on, will be able to load in the skins and the extra stuff with ease. So let's just get right into it. New career game, and I'm going to load up the current rosters, the 2016-2017 rosters, which you can find on a website called theblueline.com. And it will have everything up to date, logos, player faces, rosters, and whatnot. You can all download it from there. And as soon as we start a new career game, we come up to this screen where it gives a nice long list of leagues around the world that you can manage. You don't have to manage in the National Hockey League in the United States. You can manage in Austria. You can manage in Germany. There's apparently a Great Britain League. I did not know that as soon as I loaded this up. But what we're going to do is we're going to have the National Hockey League on enhanced and everything else on view only. And the reason why I'm selecting everything in the United States is so that you can see every single player within the United States, so that you can try and trade for them, you can scout them when they develop, and then pick them up in the draft. Basically just picking up everybody within that. And actually, not only that, I should probably load up the Canadian leagues as well, because, well, a lot of the Canadian players come into the NHL. In fact, there's a crap ton of Canadian players in the NHL. I want to say majority of players in the NHL are Canadian, so that's why we're going to load those up. You don't have to. You really don't. You can just leave it on NHL for the time being just to get yourself acclimated to the game, but I've played this for a few months now, and I want to try and get as many players into this database so that we can scout them, to bring them into the club, and hopefully they develop as well as they should. So clicking on next takes you to this screen where it's basically a condensed version of the Football Manager screen, telling you to, add key staff, add key players and whatnot. And in fact, we will do that. Add key staff, players to playable teams, and add extra juniors. Now that tick box is specifically for Eastside Hockey Manager. Adding the junior players is basically adding more draftable players to the pool, so that when you can scout them, and come draft time, you'll have a better knowledge of who's out there, who's available to bring into your club. So we're going to go with that. And also the start date is of note because September 4th, 2016 is the start of the preseason. We don't want to start all the way back in July. Might as well start with the preseason so that we have a shorter amount of time to get to the start of the season itself. Now, after all that setup, you come to a very simplistic looking general manager creation screen. First name, last name, nationality, date of birth, past experience, which can range from Hall of Famer all the way down to rec or Sunday League player. it's really your choice. And then over here on the left-hand side, selecting whatever team you want. At this point in time, it's just only teams in the NHL. So we're going to go with the Blackhawks. Now, the Blackhawks, a little bit of a background on them. They were formed in 1926 and are considered one of the original 6 teams in the NHL. For a period of time, there were only 6 teams in the National Hockey League. Outside the Blackhawks, it was the Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, the Boston Bruins, New York Rangers, and the Detroit Red Wings. Those are considered the original 6 hockey teams and have a long storied history between all of them. Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings considered one of the fiercest rivals in the NHL. So now that's all said and done, we are considered the general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks, which is very different than being the head coach. Head coach very much strictly controls the team and the daily organization of the team itself. The general manager has to be one step above the head coach in that they will take over for trades, they'll deal with a salary cap and whatnot. It's more of the back end work is what a general manager does in hockey. Very much so, a general manager could also be the head coach, which is pretty much what we're going to be doing here today. Even though we will have a head coach under our payroll, I'm going to be acting double duty as both general manager and head coach. So this is what the team overlay screen looks like when you start. And I know it's just like Football Manager. There's a lot of buttons. There's a lot of information being thrown at you. We're going to just break this down one by one into a manageable state so you guys can understand a little bit clearer. Some of these sections are very self-explanatory. Latest news, schedule, league standings. They're all very self-explanatory. Don't really need to get too much into that. One section that I do really like that Eastside Hockey Manager put in are at the very top, the player focus and the team leaders section being very prominent. I'm sure they really want to see how some of these players that you have in your squad are doing on a game-by-game or a season basis. So that's why this rotates every single day, that a player focus goes from player to player. It doesn't just stay on one, it rotates from player to player. And also team leaders, another very self-explanatory section, so shows you who is the best on your squad in like goals, assists, shots on goal, etc. down the line. I also like the fact that they put the team finances on this front screen as well, showing you exactly how much money you have in the bank balance, what the salary cap is, because that is league-wide. You cannot go over that salary cap, as well as what the total player salaries are. So as you can see right now, the salary cap is at $73 million. We are currently paying 72 and a bit for player salary. So we can probably sneak one more player in for about $900,000 and stay under that salary cap. But as we go through the roster, I'm pretty sure we have a full squad and we don't need to pick anybody else up on the free agent market. We can go with what we have, not just in the Blackhawks, but also in our minor league system. So going into the first tab, it is the news option, and you can access this. I believe it's F4. No, it's F3. It's very different than Football Manager. F3 is what will give you your news options. So you can go take a look at what exactly is around here. Welcome to the Chicago Blackhawks. Thank you very much. Actually, the United Center is less than 20,000. I thought there was more. I'm going by standing room only. I'm forgetting about that. The board want the Stanley Cup. Now, Chicago, like I said, have won the Stanley Cup 3 times in the last 6 years, 6 times overall as a club. And because of the squad that continuously gets put out year after year, especially in the last few years, the board expect to make it to the Stanley Cup, if not win the whole damn thing. So that's going to be the main challenge that we're going to have in this first season, if not the entire series, is to win a Stanley Cup. Outside of that, outside of that, it's nice that we get the fans' reaction on me being appointed as the general manager. They're very indifferent, probably because that he's not very tested. Mr. Gendo is not very tested as a general manager. He's a rookie. He doesn't know about the game of hockey, and he doesn't know about creating rosters and whatnot. I don't know why the fans would be skeptical. I know why. It's because I'm taking over for Scotty Bowman. Scotty Bowman was the previous general manager who gave us the 3 Stanley Cups in the last 6 years. So yeah, I guess that's why the fans are a bit skeptical. Going back to the front page screen, and we got ourselves the GM options, and basically it's a matter of coaching, and do you want the head coach to take over for like exhibition games and taking over preseason, taking over practice and whatnot. It's essentially like, do you want your assistant manager to take over preseason friendlies and football manager, something like that. So, but while the name is different, the roles are essentially the same. Do you want this AI to take over certain aspects of this game? And I feel like at this point in time, that's for the best. I never really like playing friendlies in Football Manager, and I don't really like playing friendlies in any other game as well. So we'll let the computer take over for that, so we won't have to worry about exhibition. So next to the GM options, we get a detailed roster breakdown of everybody on the squad, and it shows you your names, it shows you your position. There are only 4 positions in hockey: goalkeeper, defenseman, center, and winger. The 2 wingers left and right push forward. They're the first forward attackers on the squad. Center, as the name would imply, holds the center ice. Defenders play back, and a goalkeeper minds the net. Take a look at the tab up here. You can see the various views. You can take a look at the contracts and see who is getting paid the most and the least. And yeah, Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane being the 2 most paid Blackhawks for a reason. If you don't want to look at players' attributes individually, you can look at them in the roster breakdown. Like I said, it's pretty much exactly like what you would expect from Football Manager. I mean, it was made by Sports Interactive, so you'd feel that some of these menus would transfer over to this game, and they really have very well. Now, the reason why I say Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane are the highest paid of the Blackhawks is, well, they kind of deserve it. Jonathan Toews is considered to be one of the best, if not one of the top 3 best NHL players that is currently playing today, and that's, you know, depending on who you ask. It could be Sidney Crosby, could be Alexander Ovechkin, like I said, depending on who you ask. But Jonathan Toews, very technically gifted, and also a natural-born leader at 28 years old. Just take a look at a lot of these stats: 17s, 18s, some 20s, especially in the mental stats. That's what makes him the captain of the Blackhawks, is because he is a natural-born leader. Now, taking a look at Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, not as mentally adept as Jonathan Toews is, but he still has a lot of 20s there, especially in creativity and determination. Also very technically gifted, physically stout as well, just doesn't like to hit a lot, as you can clearly see with a 7 hitting and an 11 strength. He's not going to give you anything on defense, but if you wanted him to shoot the puck on net and score you goals, then he'll exactly do that. Going back to the front screen and going to the schedule tab, and it's a very, very generalized calendar showing you exactly who we're going to be playing on what days. Doesn't really need to go into any more detail there. Next to that, the finances tab, it's basically a more in-depth detailing of what you see on the front page, showing you exactly where your income and your expenditure is. It's all in a one condensed page, not like in Football Manager where it's broken out into 5 or 6 separate things. It just gives you all there at one time to understand where exactly the money is going. Now, next to finances is a tab that will only show up during preseason. That's training camp. And training camp basically breaks down the team into 2 separate squads, brings in some free agents as well to try and monitor their development if you want to bring them into the squad. And like I said, it's just a developmental thing, ramping them up to get themselves ready for the actual season proper. And outside of that, not really used for much else. Now, the tab next to training camp is the scouting tab, and I'm going to be honest with you, haven't really done a lot of scouting in Eastside Hockey Manager compared to Football Manager, but being developed by the same company, I'm sure that the scouting is done just about the same. So we're going to click on a player, try Mikkel Agard, and we're going to take a look at him right now. We actually do have all of his stats here. I did put on the Fog of War, so I'm not quite sure why we have all of his stats readily available to us. But what you do for your scouting is you come up to the Actions tab here in the top right, and you can add him to the short list, you can scout him, you can compare him with other players, or you can approach to sign. Now, obviously, we're not going to approach to sign him right away, so we're just going to give him a scout, and it will give you an option to choose which scout that you want to use on this player, much like with Football Manager. But we're just going to go with any scout available, confirm that action, and we will get ourselves a scouting report within the next couple of days on him. And much like with Football Manager, you have a short list, you have a player search, and you have your staff search, so if you want to go after more players or go after more coaches, you got your lists that you can choose from. Next to the scouting tab is the free agents tab, but unfortunately we can't click on that right now since apparently there are no free agents. I believe it's because we didn't actually technically start a season yet, so that's why we can't go into it. And then next to that is the trade center, and obviously there are no trades that have been made because it was also the start of the season. But that's where we would go if we wanted to make trades or just view on all the trades that have taken place in the league. So let's take a look at the icons across the top. Of course, you got your back forward arrows, your home arrow, your mail arrow. This is your roster arrow. It looks like a jacket, but this is, in fact, the tab that takes you to your rosters page. Then you have a manager, a general manager menu, where it's a drop-down. And once again, you can take a look at all of these. You can go into your roster, you can go into your schedule, you can take a look at your board confidence, see how the board think you're doing as a general manager. But the one thing that really needs to be brought to attention is the tactics screen. Now, the tactics screen is probably the most in-depth thing that you're going to have to deal with if you're going to be trying this game. Now, in hockey, you got to create what's known as lines. There are 4 lines in hockey that you can swap at any point in time. And basically the line changes affect the center and the 2 wingers. So you're going to have to create 4 lines of separate centers and wingers, as well as just defensive pairings. I know it's starting to get a little crazy, but I'll show you in just a bit. So what you need to do to create these entire tactics are you need to click on a player, that being either one of the goalies, the defensemen, the wingers, or the centers, and then click on their area over here. I clicked on a goalie, so he can only go into the goalie slot, and they will automatically populate. Now I'm going to check back with you in a second while I create all my lines. Alright, so I've created every single line under every single situation that is given here. A normal 5-on-5, this is what will show from up and down, first through 4th line. 5-on-4 power plays is if your opponent has somebody in the penalty box. 5-on-3 is if they have 2 in the penalty box. Likewise, 4-on-5 and 3-on-5 is if you have 1 or 2 men in the penalty box respectively. Even strength lines, it's not 5-on-5 hockey at that point in time. It'd be 4-on-4, and usually that happens after 2 guys get into a fight and they get sent to the penalty box. So it'd be even strength of 4-on-4 hockey. Now, we can also take a look and see how well each positioning of that line is by checking on view units. And right now we're taking a look at the second line, and we'll base it off of this star rating. It's out of 4, so we have the best offense, speed, and skill on this second line. Defense is looking a little shaky there. Toughness also not looking too hot, but it's because I have players like Anisimov and Kane who are not very heavy hitters. They're all known for their offense, so that's why we have a 4-star offense and very little toughness, because they're just more focused on getting the puck into the net. Now, if we take a look at something like I was going to say, where's my toughest line? Apparently, I don't have a lot of toughness on my squad, which is a little bit of a tricky problem, especially if we want to go deeper into games and deeper into lines. You want somebody that's great defensively, but also has some strong toughness on that line, so you can win that puck back and take it up the ice and score on the other end. But clearly, the first line should always be your best line, best offense, best defense, and then it works its way down between second, third, and fourth, where you start to sacrifice a little of that offense for better defense and better toughness. Like I said, the squad just doesn't have a lot of toughness on it, so I'm going to have to try and work that out before the start of the season. Alright, so creating your lines is akin to making your formations in Football Manager. Then this screen right here is like making your sliders. How do you want your team to play when they have the puck or when they don't have the puck? And as you can clearly see right here, you also can be dropped down into if you're on even strength, if you're on the power play, if you have the man advantage, or if you're trying to kill off a penalty if you don't have the man advantage. So we're going to break it down very simply. Captains and alternate captains over here, basically who you want as your captain. Extra attackers, who do you want to designate as the extra players going forward when you have a power play, when you have the extra man advantage. Forward usage, do you want to go overload? Do you want to have just your wingers going forward? Do you want to have your wingers and your center going forward? As far as your defense goes, do you just have both your defenders? Do you want to have one defender? Have no defenders going forward? It's however you want it. Power play usage, it basically is favor your first team or go with equal strength, matching up with how your opponent plays. Line matching. Now, line matching is essentially, do you go 1 for 1, 2 for 2, or do you want to have your first line going up against the opponent's third and whatnot? It can be a whole mishmash of what do you want to have your strategy set up as. And I personally like to go 1 to 1, 2 to 2, just so we know what exactly the lines are when we have our certain players out. Shot targeting, well, essentially it's where do you want to have your players shoot. It's essentially a player training, but instead you're telling your entire team to go shoot for this one specific area. And it could be a strategy type of aspect as well. Do you want them to shoot high, shoot low? Like, where is the goalkeeper weak? What the 5-hole is. Now, the 5-hole is when you have your goalkeeper spread out. The 5-hole would essentially be the gap between the leg pads. That would be considered the 5-hole. So basically, if someone is telling you that, oh, that goalkeeper's got a weak 5-hole, it's nothing sexual. Believe me, it's nothing bad like that. It just means that they cannot drop down quick enough to cover up that gap between the leg pads. So if you want to tell your players to go shoot at that for a certain goalie, then by all means go after that. With 3-on-3 plays, do you want to use 2 defensemen or 2 forwards? Plain and simple, do you want to be more defensive or more offensive when it comes to 3-on-3 hockey? And I will say this going forward, I know this is a lot of information to take on, but please, if you have any questions, leave it in the comment box below, and I will try to answer them to the fullest, or if there are any other hockey guys watching it, please, I want you guys to answer as well, because I want everybody to follow on with this series as much as possible, and I know you guys can't do that if you don't understand the game. So I want to have as much help as possible when it comes to understanding the game of hockey for people that don't. Now, down here at the tactical settings, it's a lot more hockey terminology down here. Do you want to be zone marking or man marking? That's probably the most simplistic out of the bunch. A mentality, do you want to be more defensive or offensive minded? Aggressiveness, same thing. Back checking, that's a hockey terminology where how heavy or how easy do you want to hit somebody in the back when you're trying to get the puck when you're fighting for them on the boards. Gap control, it's essentially how close do you want to mark on somebody, going back to zone or man marking. Hitting, or puck pressure, I should say, it's the same thing. How aggressive do you want to go after the puck? It almost is a similar thing to aggressiveness in play. Hitting, do you want to tell your defenseman to go hit harder or hit softer? Tempo, faster or slower. Passing, do you want to be safe passing, short passes going forward, or do you want to be more creative and aggressive going down the ice? Shooting, essentially the same thing. Do you want to take shorter shots or fewer shots, or do you want to just say, okay, just let it rip, like shoot on sight? Dumping the puck. Now, what dumping the puck means, another hockey-specific term, is dumping the puck out of the back of the area out into center ice. Wrong, Brian. It's exactly the opposite. Dumping the puck is sending the puck up from center ice, dumping it into the opponent's half to set up an attack. And finally, the tactical system down here is kind of like the set piece creator that you see in Football Manager, but at the same time, it's not quite set pieces because it happens during situational stuff within the flow of the game, whether it's, during game action or stoppage, like breakouts at the very top up here. That's fast break stuff. Do you want them to fast break with the puck down the wings, down the center? Do you want them to crisscross to confuse the opponents? It's your choice. Where do you want to do? Down here, face-offs, I guess you can consider this to be the set pieces of hockey. Do you want the offensive-minded teams to be more shooty as soon as they get the puck? Do you want them to pass it around? And defensively, do you want them to be more aggressive to get the puck out of the area or to hold on to the puck within their side? Whew, guys, I know it's a lot of information to go through, but 3 more things at the top of the snap bar, and then we will call it for the day. We got the standings tab right here, which looks like a trophy, which is pretty much what the competitions tab is in Football Manager, except this just shows you what the conference view looks like, what the Eastern Conference, Western Conference, what all the divisions look like. So yeah, you can take a look and see how exactly each team is getting on within the season. This tab up here with the NHL will give you the overview. It's basically the league tab. Shows you all the stats for players during the season, who's the best in the career, who's the best for the season, and whatnot. Also shows you the standings, schedule, and as I just mentioned, the statistics. And then finally, the world stuff. The World Championships, you can go take a look at those leagues. You can take a look at the national teams, all the drafts, the rankings of said drafts, and what players are available in said drafts. That's, is this like the best prospect, and, whatever. Goes all the way down from there. It's very detailed. If for a game that doesn't really seem like much, it is very detailed for the sport it's in. Guys, that was a lot of information to cover, and as I said before, if you don't understand anything, please leave it in the comment box below. I did not go through everything, to be quite honest with you, because there's just way too much to cover. I only went through the essentials that were needed before we get into our first proper game, which will be taking place in the next episode. Because it would be like me trying to go through all the Football Manager menus. We'd be here for an hour, and I'm pretty sure nobody wants to see or hear that. So if you have any questions, like I said, please leave in the comment box below. I'll answer it. Any other hockey guy watching this will answer it. I do thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this, and I hope that this will be a decent series for you to watch and learn about the game of hockey. So, guys, like I said before, if you enjoyed it, please go and hit that like button, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. But as always, guys, this is Gendo, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and peace out.